minutes, it doesn't hurt, and it is hard because there's, my two children and my husband in the house. There's no quiet, but because of that, I definitely found a need to find that quiet, even if there's noise around me. So, it is challenging for sure.
A worthy endeavor. Thank you, Manisha.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? What are your thoughts? How's your practice these days?
It's Carl. I'll go.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah, so I mean, I've kind of been inundated with these classes the past couple of months, and it's been great. I've been doing Taoist and Buddhist meditation off and on, probably more off than on, for several decades, and it's kind of great to get back into the discipline, and having the group and the classes really helps to reinforce the discipline, to keep it going every day. And kind of some of the tips that Christina gave in the beginners class that we just ended were really great in overcoming a lot of the mental obstacles, that you encounter, that, you say, well, not today, or I'm too tired, or all the excuses. And having some tools at hand to overcome that and get into it and develop the discipline has been very, very helpful. So yeah, it's been good. I've made a lot of progress over the past few weeks, and it's been great.
That's great. Thank you, Carl. Any other thoughts? I see Ellie's joined us. Hi, Ellie. I see Carol too. Carol on her phone. Hi, Carol. Allison, how's your practice these days?
Me unmute.
Oh, you were unmute. No. Oh.
Here we go.
There you go.
We hit the button at the same time. I'm good. Let's see. My practice is, so I feel like it's very strong. It's just not as regular as it needs to be. So I have like no schedule. Like my life is like, I'm having a hard time remembering what day of the week it is, kind of thing, which I think some other people may be understanding. But somehow, when I have less time in my life, I get more done. So I don't have good excuses around it. I just, I'm doing some of my practice every day, but I'm not doing all of my practices every day.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Honest. I feel like I'm
but I do feel that having these Thursday nights and then also Brendan's on Sunday mornings, like the combination of those is really helping my meditation practice.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'm noticing, there's a little bit of a shift happening because I'm typically somebody who enjoys doing sadhana practice and avoids meditation. And right now, I'm just wanting to sit. Mm-hmm. And it's taking more discipline to go back and do. I have a lot of sadhana commitments, like a lot of them. Yeah. And so it's sort of like I get overwhelmed, and then I feel like, oh my God, I don't have 3 hours or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then it doesn't always happen.
That makes sense. So for those of you who maybe there was a word that Allison used that was, it fell on your ears and you were like, well, what is that? The word sadhana is a Sanskrit term for a structured ritual practice that we do in the Tibetan tradition. And has lots of different things. It can have like instruments and lots of chanting and mantras and in some cases even melodies. depending on which sadhana you're practicing. Tonight, so Allison's talking about the practices she's been doing for many, many years. But she's also saying, like, to bring it back down to the basics of, breath and body, and how high are my shoulders up to my ears, and what can I do to kind of be aware of where my body is in space and what my breath is doing. This is what we talk about when we're referring to sitting meditation, which is what we'll talk about in just a minute in terms of basic instructions and then practice together. So a little bit, there's all sorts of, in our tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, there's all sorts of ways to access getting to know yourself a little bit better. And some are more ritualistic, and some are just kind of bare bones, simple, open relaxation, or concentration on the breath is another way to think about it and talk about it.
I appreciate that you just said that, Tracy, because I feel like one of the gifts from this Thursday night regular thing and Sundays is, my life has slowed way down. And so I'm noticing, okay, peeling a carrot or slicing a cucumber, or I've been gardening a lot and just being quiet and being with plants. So I just feel like the meditation, like even if I'm not being as good as I should be about all of my practices, I feel like the meditation is permeating my life in a way that is harder to have happen when you're zipping down a highway with a big commute and all that other stuff.
Right.
So,
is anyone else really feeling the change in lifestyle and focus over the last 3 months? What are other people's experiences of that during COVID, during the pandemic?
This is Nicole, but I actually love it. I didn't think I'm a school counselor, by the way, so
Okay.
we were doing school from from afar, but I'm loving it. In fact, I was having a conversation with a friend tonight, talking about which stores are open, and and I'm like, I have no desire to go back to that way of living, which is just mindlessly buying stuff. Or I think it really focused me on simple things, and it became, when you talk about rituals, even though I didn't realize it, but it was a ritual of like making the most of everything we had, and making the most of using all of our vegetables and all of our fruits and not wasting. I just became very mindful of all that. So I liked it. So I'm trying to implement that more in my life. So yeah.
Wonderful.
and I just want to add that this has given me, my work is usually in the sciences, but I have this artistic part to myself. I used to make jewelry, I play the fiddle, used to be a landscaper. So it feels like I'm having more time for that part of me. And it's quite interesting because it's making me think like, maybe I want to redo how I earn money in the world. And so there are a lot of gifts.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the privileges that we have. It feels like they're kind of right in my face when I think of, I've been able to work from home. In fact, I was working from home before the pandemic started, so it was a very smooth transition for me. All of these different ways, and especially in light of the last 2 weeks and what has been going on socio-politically.
Yes.
and the voices that are being heard, and the way that all of us have this opportunity to get out of the way and listen, and then look at what work we actually need to do to support some of the voices that have recently become very clear and loud. And I feel like that's also a gift. In many ways, the pandemic kind of created a space for these kinds of actions to come to fruition. And I'm talking about it, it's giving me chills. So I think that there's so many. So I teach development studies and political economy. So I'm like chomping at the bit to talk about capitalism and but we're talking about meditation tonight. So let me dial myself a little back. Yeah. Anything else? Any other thoughts about how the pandemic has created space, or even if 2 weeks ago, even 3 weeks ago, we were talking, we had a lot more stress in our voices, I think. And I welcome the stressful and kind of ungrounded experience too, if anybody's feeling like that.
I think for me, Tracy, it's this fear of what we don't know, about this virus. Even though things here in New Jersey are beginning to open up, stores are opening up, restaurants are opening up with outdoor dining, daycares, camps. I don't know if I want my children to go to camp this summer because we don't know enough. There's no vaccine, we don't have the option to take the vaccine or not, So it's that I think like Nicole, I'm not ready for things to open up and go back to how they were. I'm not saying I loved being housebound because I did get crazy, but it was a nice time out because, life here in America is always like, the New York minute, every second counts, get in the car, come home from school, take my children to martial arts, take them for soccer practice, come home, eat dinner, go to bed. Like there's no time to just be, you know what I mean? To just sit and talk to each other. And I really feel that I've got to know my children much better as the personalities that they're going into, and vice versa. They're getting to know me and my habits and my husband's habits. And that's the kind of thing you get out of family vacation. And you do that like maybe once a year, right?
Right.
Saying this is a vacation, but we're getting that time. And, you see like pollution is down in so many places in the world. Animals are going to places that they don't normally go. Like I saw in Africa, lions are sleeping on the road,
Right.
and turtles are coming out of the sea to lay eggs and, reproduce and stuff. So in a way, this might be Mother Nature's way of saying, okay, stop everyone. You need to just chill out at home, let the environment do its thing, let the world do its thing, and be people versus these busy social beings.
Right.
So that's how I feel. So I'm concerned with everything opening up, to be honest with you. I would rather stick it out like this for 3 more months instead of like go back to normal life and then, we have a second wave and have to do this all over. So that's
I feel that too. I feel that's kind of how it is and how it's going in Denver too. And I know that my family's from Bergen County. I grew up in Bergen County in Paramus. So I know that New Jersey has had a particularly difficult go of it. And Bergen County was the first place the virus, after Washington State, Bergen County and then New York State were the first ones that have really been dealing. And I don't think we've had that kind of relationship with the virus in Denver. There's only just over 26,000 cases, and there haven't been, I think there's just over 1,500 deaths, terribly, but it's different from what's happening in New Jersey. So I hear from my sister every day. She's a school teacher in Bergen County, and I hear what their experience is every day of feeling a lot more locked up and fearful about what the next steps are. Mhm. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's well. I heard from Christina, and she said, as I imagined, I sent the link a little late, and she's already in another meeting. So why don't we sit together? Why don't we talk a little bit about some body-based practice is feeling right, especially after what Manisha just shared in terms of I felt like some fear reactions coming up. So maybe let's talk about meditation in terms of the body. It's one of the basic starting points that we have to work with when trying to access the mind, right? The mind is kind of this nebulous, undefinable reality, right? When someone says, like, what is the mind, or where is the mind? It's really hard to point to some place that it is. But we have some tools with which we can start to familiarize ourselves with what is mind, or what's going on, or how do I relate to thought, or what I'm thinking, or work with what's coming up in terms of thoughts and feelings and emotions. And the tools that we have are the body and the breath. They're a really wonderful place to start. Heather and Megan, have you guys had any experience with meditation?
I've had some.
Yeah.
I've done movement meditations between yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong and a lot of that kind of stuff. I've guided meditations because I'm a teacher, so I'm a little rambunctious sometimes. That's a good tool to grab quickly. So
yeah.
And I've done some with guided meditation, but like not heavily practiced much like recently. And I think with everything going on, I definitely need to get back into that. So.
Great. I think some of our fellow practitioners in the session with us tonight can speak a little bit to you heard a little bit about how having some kind of consistent practice has really helped manage feelings and emotions in the last 2 months or so, 2 or 3 months. So thanks. I think you guys will find, and Nicole, I noticed your video went off, so I'm assuming your dog pulled you down the path.
Yes, we're headed. But I have we started doing, there's a curriculum that we use in my school that's social emotional learning, but also mindfulness. And then we started, I've been co-teaching with our PE teacher, and we have been trying to incorporate some meditation into our practice. And I'm anticipating as we return in the fall that, we're going to have to be able to give the kids more tools.
Some of that second step by chance?
Yes, we use second step also.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really, but it's really encouraged me to discover more and to learn more. So I'm excited to be exposed to this. So
Yeah,
so
I've step for like 4 or 5 years now. So.
Yeah, it's second step is great, and I find that it helps the adults just as much as it helps the kids learning about social emotional learning and mindfulness. So yeah,
Agreed.
That's great.
That's great. That's wonderful to have you guys in the session, actually, especially in terms of connecting with the Denver community. There's a lot out there to enrich for us to learn from what you guys are doing in terms of SEL, social emotional learning. I'm thrilled that the three of you are on the call. Yeah. All right. Well, let's actually, I want to ask some of the more seasoned meditators in the group, when we start talking about body as the basis of practice, What are the things that come up for you in terms of folks who have kind of worked with this concept a little bit? What are some of the things that we've said in teaching, in many teachings, that have stuck with you as you've developed your practice? So I'm looking at Janet and Libby and Tara and Carol, if she can hear us. I invite you guys to speak a little bit. Or Allison too.
Hi, this is Tara. I'm sorry you can't see me.
No problem.
I thought I would just say hello and offer a couple of thoughts about my practice. I'm noticing that the meditation has been really helpful for allowing allowing myself to just be with whatever is happening, because there's just been so much that we've all heard in the news and so much that we've all in varying ways experienced, and to have an opportunity to just simply allow through the breath primarily as a great tool. And I know if Christina teaches, it's often, with the exhalation of the breath, to just really be able to exhale and just notice how the mind gets a very good opportunity to just relax and really, really, truly allow ourselves to explore what is that relaxation. And that's just such an excellent tool for any time of the day. I also notice if I do my practice first thing in the morning, it sets a tone for the entire day. I like to call it my letting go muscle. So I've exercised my letting go muscle first thing in the morning, and for the rest of the day, I'm more toned. I'm more able to work with everything that comes up. So I just thought I would offer that a little bit.
That's great. Thank you, Tara. I'll integrate that, especially the exhale. I'll talk about the exhale, and I'll talk about relaxation when we sit together and practice in a few minutes. Thanks. Anyone else? Any nuggets of wisdom that have stuck with you as we talk about the body and the breath as a basis? Janet? Let's see, you're trying to unmute, but it's not.
You must mean the other Janet.
No, I mean you, Janet.
I kept waiting for the other Janet. I don't feel as if like I have as much experience at all as a lot of other people who've been meditating for 20 some years. So I don't know what I have to offer except just to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Thanks, that's perfect. Well, let's do it then. Let's just do it.
I just wanted to add one thing.
Sure.
It's not that profound, but somehow mentioning the body helps me be, oh yeah, my whole being gets to come on this road. So it's almost like it helps me relax somehow. Mm-hmm. If the conscious, if we're thinking like long-term beyond one lifetime kind of perspectives, then somehow it's easy to just forget that our body, with its limitations and its pain and whatever it has, is totally welcome And in a way that, you know, brings us right back to the classic be here now kind of thing. So I don't know.
That's lovely, Allison. Yeah, I think that's right. I think I have that same experience, that when I say the body, it's actually welcoming each part of the body and all of the pain and discomfort and
And how our bodies allow us to live in the world or hinder us or whatever, all of that, like all of it, including our race. Like it's all welcome.
Lovely. Well, let's do a little sitting together. I see if you can check in with your body right now. What's it doing and what's it feeling? Where does it feel like it's holding a little bit of tension? And see if you can just not do anything, not force it to do anything, but just relax, and settle in. Kind of acknowledge that you have a body. There are feet, and there are hands, and elbows, and the insides of elbows. Hi, Jackie. Welcome. And there are armpits, and there are scapula, shoulder bones, and there's that little space in between, like right in the middle of your neck, below at the bottom of your neck, that feels a little tender. There's that place there, and your earlobes, and your eyebrows, and your scalp, and pinky toes. Just kind of remind yourself that there's this physical experience that we're having right now. And all of it is welcome. The parts we really like and admire about ourselves. The parts that we wish we didn't have. Welcome all of those parts into this physical experience right now. And just notice any sensation that you have in these different parts. A tingling, a sense of warmth, a subtle vibration, a clenching. Just notice, and when you notice, then let it go. Notice again, and let it go. Everything is welcome here. And now that we have some awareness of the physical body experience, think about sitting in the most comfortable position that you can find for yourself. Traditionally, it's taught that the most important piece of the position of the body for meditation is a straight spine. So check in with your spine. Where is it? How does it feel? You could be sitting on a chair, sitting on a couch, laying down on the ground, although caveat, not really encouraged because often we just fall asleep when we're laying down. But you can also achieve a straight spine when you're laying down. That's a position you need to be in. So just check in with your spine. Check in with your shoulders as they relate to your spine. Are they forward? Are they back? Are they up near your ears? Or are they relaxed? And find your most comfortable seat. Now bring your attention to your breath. The breath is another thing that we have with us all the time. So it's quite easy to use it and the body as a focus as we work with meditation. And you'll notice that breathing in happens and breathing out happens quite naturally. Take a few moments just to watch your body breathe. What's your relationship to that breath? Is it slow or fast? Does the breath make your shoulders go up and down? Or your stomach move in and out? See if you can follow your exhale as it goes all the way out. Just follow. And what happens at the end of that exhale? The body can inhale by itself without any direction. Let's sit quietly now for a few minutes, just following your out breath, following your exhale, and then observing the body breathe itself. If the mind gets distracted from the breath, just bring it right back. If you're thinking that you're doing this wrong, just bring your attention back to the out breath. If you feel the you feel the urge to move or to scratch an itch, just bring your attention back to the out breath. If you hear a noise that distracts you, bring your attention back to the breath. If you think you're having a really good meditation session, bring your attention right back to the breath. Now feel your body on whatever seat it's on. Bring your attention to where that seat contacts your body. And bring your attention to your feet. Notice if you feel any sensations, sense of warmth, a subtle vibration. And now recognize the room that you're in. And look around and come on back to the session. So how was that for everybody? What did you notice while you were paying attention to your out breath?
Tracy, this is Tara.
Hi, Tara.
My back went out on me today, so
Oh, no.
I'm really appreciating how you just led that. That was so helpful for me to just be with the sensations and not resist them, and just welcome welcome what's happening. I actually feel joyful now, amazingly. So yeah, that was really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I actually forgot to mention pain in ours. So I'm glad that worked for you, Tara.
Yeah, it's just to have a sense of not having the body be the enemy, sort of.
Yeah.
That kind of experience of just like, all right, this is what's going on. I'm just going to breathe with it and just be with it. And the mind relaxes as the body relaxes, kind of experience.
Right.
So thanks so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Yeah, we often talk about meditation in the Tibetan tradition as a practice of familiarizing. The Tibetan word for meditation is gom gyap, and gyap is a nominalizer that means to do or to make, and gom is the word for familiarize, or get to know is another way to think about it. So getting to know, the act of getting to know. And I think when we focus on the body, there's this opportunity to remind ourselves that we are actually embodied beings. And we spend a lot of time thinking and processing and keeping to-do lists. And I'm sure you guys, all of us have experience with the busyness of life. And the body is keeping score in a way that we don't often remember that it is. I stole that line from a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, who's a trauma therapist. I see you nodding, Heather. But it's a wonderful book, but it's true. Actually, the body is holding things, and we're relating to those things, I think, with greater or less awareness as we move through our days. So I think starting with the meditation practice, using the body as the focus and the breath as the focus, is a really profound way to kind of slow down even more.
Well, there does seem to be a subtle difference between the like a hard focus on it, like a I can't think of the right word, but a kind of a clinging to the experience of a sensation of pain that might be arising, versus just being with that sensation of pain. It's sort of like there's something there that the body's almost trying to teach you, or there's some information in it. But just it's almost like being a little more intuitive about the experience rather than analytical about the experience, if so to speak. At least that's what's coming up for me when I'm trying to use this as meditation, use the experience. So, and the breathing, I appreciate what you said about just relaxing the breathing and just following it out, just following the breath out, and then that gap before the in-breath, and just the point being just to try to relax as much as possible, almost to be curious about the relaxation in a way.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else? Any other insights in terms of the body? What did you notice in your body? Did anybody have any thoughts? No thoughts? Well, that's great.
Okay, that's not true. I definitely had a few there. Just, I remembered a dream I had this morning, had to come back, heard some sounds outside, had to come back, Yeah.
That's great. Was it hard to come back? Was it hard to recognize and then come back?
It wasn't, no. But I do feel like maybe there was a little bit more thoughts today than usual. I'm not exactly sure why, but I had a chiropractor treatment like just an hour or two ago. So I think my body's processing that. And so my mind is a little distracted because of that or something.
Yeah, my understanding of the practice is that thoughts aren't bad or something to be suppressed or avoided or quieted or something like that. But really, this process of getting to know ourselves is about allowing whatever comes up, allow, and then back to the breath. So it's not necessarily a process of shutting down the thoughts or shutting up the thoughts, but more of a welcoming and creating space for those thoughts.
So do you have, I'm curious what you would say, like most of the thoughts that come during meditation are just distractions, and I know what I need to do is just let them go and return to the breath. But like this morning, I was having a dream that I think actually is kind of poignant, and there's some insights that I need to gain from that. And so for some reason, that came while we were sitting, and a few more insights came, and I was like, wait, don't go there. And then wait, I kind of want to go there, and maybe this is good, you know. So, I mean, I'm just curious. So like when it does feel like an insight is washing over you when you're meditating, and it's not just a distraction. I mean, it is a distraction, but I'm just curious what you would say.
Can I tell you a little story about beginner's mind? So in 2001 spring, I was in Nepal on the eve of my first meditation retreat, only having received the very basic meditation instructions from a teacher. And so I went out to this beautiful valley place called Parping, which Allison, I know you know, outside of Kathmandu, and I got myself a room in a guest house where I could stay for 5 days, and I arranged this restaurant to bring me food 3 times a day, and I got out my books and I got out my journal, and I was ready to do it, do this thing, not talk to anybody for 5 days. And I had dinner with these lovely British women who were maybe they were like twice my age, or maybe in their early 50s at that point. I was 23, I think. And I'm so excited to do this retreat, and I'm sitting with them, and they're talking about their meditation practice, and I'm excited because these are people who have been practicing for such a long time. And sometimes I could be a little outrageously outspoken. So, I'm like, well, what do you do? How do you do it? How do you set up your cushion, and how do you sit and everything? And they're telling me all this stuff. And then one of the women so kindly is like, well, when a thought arises and it's actually a really good idea, sometimes I get my best ideas on the meditation cushion. I just keep a book next to me while I'm meditating, and I write down what the thought is. I stop my meditation and I write it down, and I do the full thing. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting there over my fried rice dinner. I look at her and I say, isn't the point to let it go? Isn't the point to not worry about it? To trust your practice or something? I didn't know. And she got upset with me. And she said, who do you think you are telling me that I'm doing the wrong thing in my meditation practice? And I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what it is, but it seems to me like if you're meditating, then you should meditate, and that's the practice. And maybe the idea will come back later or something. She was so upset, and the two of them left dinner. They left me at dinner that night. And so the next morning I started my retreat, and the whole thing, I'm kind of experimenting, thinking about this conversation and how upset she got. And then on the morning of the 5th day, they were leaving to go back to the UK. And I was still silent. I wasn't talking to anybody. So I remember coming out of my room and walking down to the hallway to the bathroom. And she stopped me. She knew I was silent. She was there in the hallway, and she stopped me. And she grabbed my shoulders, and she was like, you're right. He was like, you are right. I've been thinking about it for 5 days. You're right. If I really trust myself, then the thought will come back later after my meditation session. If it's a really important thing to remember, then it'll be there when I need to remember it. And I didn't say anything to her. Like, she hugged me and she said goodbye. And I've never seen those women again. But it was such an interesting experience to come from like a deep place to be like, wait, do we really trust ourselves? And how do we really trust ourselves? Later, I explained this to Rinpoche, and he, our main teacher here at the center is actually this guy right here. See him? In that photo, Chögyam Rinpoche, who is a Tibetan teacher born in Ladakh, India, and trained in the Tibetan tradition. So I explained this to Rinpoche later, and he then confirmed that really, well, this was, information for me as I was asking him about this. He said, yeah. What really, if you involve yourself in any thought when you're practicing meditation, it's a distraction. And the practice is to come back to the object of focus when you're practicing this type of meditation, whatever the object of focus might be. And it is an inquiry into whether or not we really trust the wisdom that comes through in our daily lives as well. Yeah, so that's just a little story from my own life.
I have to tell you a funny story too.
Yeah.
And this is mainly just devil's advocate, but it was funny because when I was in India with Pamela and Sorkse Rinpoche, Pamela shared with me.
These are two. That's one of our other teachers, Heather and Megan. Just so you know, like in our tradition, Sorkse Rinpoche and his attendant Ani Pema.
So Ani is a nun, and Ani Pamela actually, she shared with me that Sorkse, he was mostly saying it jokingly, but I think he actually said, if your thoughts are so profound, please just write them down. Lie your bed and write them down. And so I just feel like it's a both and, actually, because she was like sharing that sometimes she literally wrote them down, and then she could really go deeper into her meditation. She's a serious meditator. I'm sure she doesn't do that. And I'm sure most of it was a joke, but I do think it's even that trusting ourselves piece, if it's something you're afraid you're going to forget, if you just write it down and then boom. So I don't know.
Yeah, for me, it's been a real practice throughout the last 20 years to really call myself on the carpet when I'm, and actually that's the question. Is this really that important? No matter what it is this
right.
really that important? Watching myself get wrapped up in a thought and then realizing that I'm thinking or distracted and making the choice. Is this really even important? Actually, my practice is really important. Label it thinking, and put it on a cloud and let it float away. Right. Anyway, that's been my experience. Yeah. Thanks for indulging my story.
There's always, that interesting thing about the Vajrayana, where things aren't always as they seem.
Right. We're talking about kind of basic meditation practices.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I love what you're bringing, the trusting ourselves part. So essential.
Anyone have any other thoughts or insights, even listening to my indulgent story?
Tracy, I think that's an awesome story. Because I was thinking, was that your moment of enlightenment when you were just starting?
Well, some say that beginner's mind is
Right.
closer than others.
It is, right. It was fascinating to hear that these ladies had been practicing for decades, and then you saying something enraged the woman, but then she realized, yeah, actually, like going back to the basics. So what I wanted to share is that, yes, I have tons of thoughts that come and go, and I try very hard to come back to my breath or to the sound that I'm listening to, or when we were doing it with you, listening to your voice and what you were saying and focusing on that. But on occasion, I will have a very angry thought where I'm angry at a person come into my mind, and you kind of chase that and you go down the rabbit hole. So sometimes I've managed to catch myself, and then I use that emotion of anger and focus on that, like Christina had taught us a few weeks ago, and play with that just before I exhale. And what that does for me is that it brings me back to a focus point, but then it's really amazing. I'm able to just kind of let it go after my sitting, and I'm not that angry. So that was a very interesting technique, because at first I wasn't comfortable playing with that, but then I kind of used it when the opportunity presented itself, basically. So I wanted to just, put that out there for people to think about that method if and when it ever arises.
Yeah, what do you make of the experience?
It allows you to work through the anger a little bit, in a very not direct way, because you're addressing the anger, not necessarily the person that you're angry at. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the actual emotion as opposed to the situation. Mm-hmm. So it was, I've only done it a couple times, so I'm definitely not an expert at that or anything. But I mean, I don't seek it out. I don't go into a sitting like, I'm going to be angry at this and then play with that. It's if it happens to come up. And then I use it to my benefit. It's interesting. That's all I have to say. It's interesting to play with that.
That's great. There's some teachings that talk about, and Christina mentioned this in the introduction to meditation class that we did a couple weeks ago, around emotion, and emotions being quite similar to a thought. Maybe they don't feel that way, but that they come from the same place. They come from the mind. And so there's some similarity there. And so working with them in these similar ways can have profound effects, I think, on your experience of whatever, if you're experiencing a thought or a dream or an emotion. I think there's some fodder there for movement and a relationship of openness and not so kind of clingy or graspy at that particular emotional experience. Thanks, Manisha. That's really, and anger's a tough one, right? I think we all have relationships with anger that are contentious, are angry relationships with anger. That's a tough one to work with. Thanks. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? What else is in your minds? Any questions about the practice itself?
Hey, Tracy, it's Carl. I know that we have in the classes talking about different types of meditation. I'm not sure if we're trying to narrow our focus in the Thursday night classes to just a specific type. I don't want to talk about things that aren't appropriate to be talking about at this particular point in the class. I wonder if you have any guidance on that.
Thanks. That's really considerate. Thinking about this is a difficult thing, I think, and I know Genevieve and Jim and Chris and I have talked a bunch about this in terms of the concept of beginning or introduction or basic meditation techniques, because actually what we're doing is quite significant. Even when we just focus on the body and work on bringing our attention back to an object of focus. This is not simple stuff. And I think there's a perception in the Western Buddhist world that somehow silent sitting meditation is somehow easier or the way to start as compared to some of the other techniques of meditation. There are innumerable techniques of meditation, and in some, you can even make the argument for receiving individual instruction, and then that creates another type of meditation that's out there in the world. And so there's some that have been systematized and codified and described in different traditions of Buddhism. And this one, working with the object, any object of focus, is usually where we try to start on a Thursday night. Like if we were hosting a group here at the center and people were coming and sitting together, I would start with what we deem the basics, body, breath, mind, relaxation, and maybe talking about some tenets or having a theme to discuss or something like that. But it's all connected. In this particular, in the Thursday nights, we have been trying to keep it to one particular technique, and maybe each of us sharing a different technique each week or something like that, so people can really get a sense of the different ways there are to approach familiarizing yourself with your mind. And so, yeah, we have been trying to keep this Thursday night space a little more like one technique focused. But as we all know, different things for different people, and different things are going to connect in different ways for different people. So, yeah, that's how we've been thinking about it. Normally, in this case, we try not to talk so much about Vajrayana practices and things like that, just because we want to welcome beginners into the space, people who have never meditated before or never had a relationship with practice, with a daily practice. And so I certainly try to, tonight I didn't do such a good job, but like not talk about Rinpoches and things like that in these Thursday night sessions. Yeah.
Got it. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks for that. I'm sorry if I went off on things that weren't appropriate.
No worries, Allison. It's also hard when people who have had a relationship with the practice, when everybody wants to come, and I think anybody who's a teacher, and I know you are, Allison, anybody who's a teacher knows what it's like when you have people of different exposure levels to the subject that you're teaching in the room. How you really have to take that into consideration when you're working with a group. Yeah. Well, great. Any other thoughts? Cool. Well, it's been really lovely to see you all. Heather and Megan, thanks for coming. And yeah. And we do this every Thursday night. If you follow us on Facebook, you'll get that's actually the place I don't forget to put the links. Just because it's a little easier than formatting MailChimp emails to send out to everybody. Takes just a little bit less time. So yeah, Padmasambhava Meditation Center, and we're right next to DU on Bucktail. So when and if we open, when this pandemic subsides, please come and see the space, and it'd be great to meet you guys in person. And Manisha, come. Oh, she just Manisha needs to come from New Jersey.
Maybe the ban is lifted.
Great, you're most welcome. And it's been especially wonderful to connect with those of you in California during this time. Actually, to have like consistent connections and to see you guys every week, and it's just been wonderful. It's like a real like family coming together. So I'm really glad for that as well in terms of the pandemic. Yeah. We are doing our second week of the Intro to Buddhism course that we've entitled Buddhism Introduces You. The second class will be on Tuesday night of this coming week. If you guys are interested, if anybody on this call is interested in joining the class, I'm going to put my email address in the chat, so you can send me an email and say, I want to come. And we'll get you signed up through the website. There's just a small donation we're asking for the group, and we'd love to have you. We're looking at the Buddha's life story, basically, and how it relates to our own lives in terms of inspiration and understanding what Buddhism in the United States actually looks like. So great. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening and a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Tracy.
Good.